All right, here we go, and thank you for joining me today. As you can see, I am just sketching in some shapes on my paper. Today I am doing a mushroom in the woods. I'm using a watercolor pencil. It's a woodless watercolor pencil, so the nice thing is that when I sharpen it, I just sharpen it into one of my watercolor wells, and then I can actually use the pigment. I don't lose anything when I go for sharper lines. I like these. You've probably seen me use them in previous videos, and that's because then I don't have to worry about the graphite and the lines just kind of fade back into the paper as you're putting water over them. I don't recommend it if you're going to be doing a lot of washes over top and you're afraid of losing your lines, but if that's not the case, then it just keeps your paper cleaner once the watercolor is applied, in my opinion. And mostly what I'm blocking out are the light areas. I'm trying not to get too fiddly. These are just all the main shapes that I'm going to have. And the reason I want to make sure that I line out those lighter areas is because it's so easy to go in with washes as when you're applying your colors. You accidentally kill spots that you really wanted to stay light. And in watercolor and even with gouache, that can be a little hard to change up. Here now you can see that I'm using some liquid Frisket. I meant to show you the brand and then I didn't. It's just whatever you can find at your local craft store. It's not necessary, but what this does is put a small layer over the paper, and that'll be saved as I'm putting washes and all sorts of things on top of them. The white of the paper is preserved for later. After everything is completely dry, I can take that off and either put in lighter colors where everything else was, darker and I still have the white of the paper, or just leave that white. Like on the mushroom, those are going to be white spots. So you don't have to do this, but as long as the tool's available, it's pretty handy, and it makes sure that you don't lose out on some of those details on your paper. Like here where I'm putting in the sky, and this is one of my lighter colors in the painting. It looks really bright and dark against the white paper, but as other colors come in, you'll see how much that fades to the background. And as much as I'm kind of being careful where I'm putting it, trying not to overdo it, again, just having that liquid Frisket on there is so much nicer. Between most of the steps on this painting, even though you're not going to see the time lapse between them, I'm letting a lot of layers dry before moving on because I don't want them to bleed when I paint over top of them. And since I am using gouache and not watercolor, that means I can paint a little more opaquely, and I will be able to layer a lot more. So I super don't want it reactivating when I'm going back over with very wet layers. Filling in my mushroom here, just a little bit of shading. And I didn't put any liquid Frisket on there, so I want to make sure I kept that nice and careful. You can see all the splashes of color that I have. Those are the lightest spots of my grass. And I really am just working light to dark. And right now, it's not looking great, but stay with me. I'm just blocking in those areas of color. I'm not trying to add in detail. I'm just putting color on the page. You can see here with the grass, what I'm trying to do is not let it get too even. Grass is really never even when you look at it, and even if it is, it's not interesting if it's even in a painting. Now here I'm adding in some dark, and I'm doing this in dark green, even though most of my background I'm going to introduce some black, but you can see kind of the edges of it. And right there near the log, so you can see I didn't put light green there. I also forgot to put the liquid Frisket there. I didn't think about it until much later. That would be an excellent place to use the liquid Frisket because as I'm layering in those colors, I could have had very nice wispy pieces of very light grass that would have looked awesome, but I painted over it and did not pause to use it or think of it. So fun thing when you're looking back at your paintings and just deciding what to do. That's why each of them is a learning process. Here I'm coming in with the black, and the reason I'm using my flat brush and have very chopping motions is that I'm trying hard to leave those little wisps of blue. I actually end up leaving too many here in the beginning, but that's me just really not wanting to kill that background color. I put it there for a reason because you can see wisps of the blue through the picture, but I'm just trying to more accurately represent what I'm seeing. That's why we have a lot of layers here. And I'm going in a little bit darker. To go darker with gouache, you just add less water, add more pigment. I'm still not using it straight from the tube here. And that is because it still flows better with water, I think. And I'm still deciding how far down I want that black to go. You can see this entire painting is just going to be a process. But we're going to get to a very cool place at the end. Just stick with me here. You can see I'm trying to add in texture. At the beginning of this painting, I didn't know exactly how I wanted to depict it, how well I was going to depict it. So you can see me finding my way here, and that's one of the only things you can do when you're wondering why something's not working or looking a certain way. Practice it. Just do it again and again and again and again. Look at pictures that you like. Look at paintings that you like. Pay attention to the brush strokes. And, watch process videos, but at the end of the day, you gotta do it yourself. You have to practice. That's the only way to teach your hands how to do that, and it's the only way to truly understand how to put the paint on the paper. So, again, you can see I was still trying to retain a very watercolor feel, but I'm gonna come in and layer a lot more over this. We're getting started on the mushroom. And that's just because it's a central piece. Also, I'm letting the rest of that painting dry. I don't want to reactivate any of that color. I'm happy where it is. Again, I kind of blotted out some of that, and that was just because I went in really heavy with that initial orange. I'll end up brightening that back up a little bit later with some more yellow. But I'm just trying to get the color variations, which is why a lot of people do paint apples. That's why your fruit studies can be important. They're an excellent study, especially if you want something in color that can show you variations in the patterns of the color and how to shade, which is a skill I'm trying to learn, but it's definitely tricky. You can't just think in shades of black and white once you start doing colors. There, right there, I'm trying to make sure that those shadow lines match up. If something looks wonky, maybe it's not matching up with something else. Recheck your proportions, recheck where things are supposed to go. And I'm bringing in this dark color now because I have decided to just go for it. This is when I was still hesitating on keeping it more watercolor-esque, but in the end I decided to use gouache to its full potential and go a little more opaque. So you can see I'm coming in. Again, this is a dark green. It's not fully black. Yeah, I'm trying to get those wispies by that log. Not my favorite part of this painting. More black, more trying not to take away the trees, but I am trying to get the silhouette that I want. And now coming in with this round brush and just creating lots of texture. I'm getting ready to go in even heavier than I did there. Yep. And that is just putting more pigment, more paint on the brush, and I'm just starting to go in heavy because I didn't like where the painting was. And as soon as I realized that I don't like what I'm doing, it's very freeing, and definitely take it that way. Don't be dismayed that it's not doing what you're wanting. Just tell yourself, oh, okay, it wasn't doing what I wanted anyway, so now I'm just going to try something different and go crazy with it. And oddly enough, once I did that, I liked this painting a lot more. If you already hate it, then you already hate it. You can't ruin it, right? Give yourself that freedom. Going in even darker, adding more texture. This is a lot of paint that I have on my brush. The brush should feel very wet and thick as you're applying it if you want to achieve what I'm doing here. Same thing, going in with a different green. As you can see, that liquid frisket has come off, so now we have all those white spots on the mushroom. And I should have some light spots on that tree in the back. You can see how that light green was able to go over the dark green. Again, that's because we're using a gouache and not watercolor. It lets you go really opaque like that if you want to. It's just a lot of pigment. We're revisiting the mushroom, just trying to get that shadowing and shading correct so he comes a little more alive. I had been tempted to add more shading to the stalk, but I did not, and I'm super happy that I didn't, because here we have it. It's not the most stellar thing ever, but some things to note. It's super pigmented up in the foreground. That helps bring that forward, and in the background, that's where I wanted to achieve the darkness of the black, but I left everything else a lot less pigmented so that it does go to the back just a little bit. That's all the time that I have for today. I hope that I will see you guys next time. Bye.